If you are constantly having to restart the same goals and it's like, well, yeah, I did make progress before, but you don't really remember what came up that distracted you, it wasn't this big thing. It might be that you don't have a good response to change, even when it's good change. That was like mind-blowing to me that I was having a negative response to positive change just because it was new. It's your host here, Mariah Chante. I have been working in the health and wellness space for the past 10 years. I'm a wellness advocate, but also a health and wellness coach that wanted to take the time to create a space that allows us to have conversations that will not only help you reflect on and improve your wellness, but really help you truly thrive in your own journey. Wellness is about so much more than diet and exercise. It's about everything that affects your lifestyle, and we cover it all. So let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Gradually Well podcast. We are officially on our new schedule of having a new episode every other Wednesday. I'm not going to lie, I missed having an episode to upload last week, but it's just what we need to do for now. We're working towards the goal of having one every week, and hopefully before we know it, we are back to being able to do that. So, what's this week's episode about? It's about not shying away from accountability. It's about being honest with ourselves along the journey that it takes us to get to reaching our goals. It's about seeing your journey through when you can see 1,000,001 reasons or excuses to quit. And it's also about switching that shame mindset to the accountability kind of self-talk. It is so easy to shame ourselves when we are trying to work on ourselves. You know, that saying, I'm my harshest critic. A lot of people are that way for themselves. But shame is such an easy thing to do and fall into that trap of shaming yourself when it comes to reaching your goals, especially your health goals. It's so easy to start talking down to yourself and just say maybe just negative things about yourself, like I'm just too lazy for that, or I'm such a lazy person. Of course, if that's the narrative you believe in, you have, and you keep telling yourself that, that's not going to encourage you to not give into lazy habits. And what it comes down to is that shame is rooted or connected to feeling undeserving, that you don't deserve connection, that you don't deserve love, that you are not worth it. And that is tied to people's identity. So if you feel shame about yourself and who you are, it's going to be incredibly difficult to make progress, to take feedback, to be able to self-reflect and take it in stride. It's really going to be difficult to do that if your whole perspective is around shame. So what do we do instead? What would be the better alternative? What would be the healthier alternative? It would be to view ourselves with an accountability lens. And I also want to clarify that critical, shameful voice can definitely come from other people. And sometimes that's very common, but it can also come from yourself. Now back to accountability. Accountability doesn't focus on the identity of the person like shame does. Accountability focuses on the action. So if we can begin to shift our perspective and our thoughts and our language to improving the action instead of thinking that your identity is damaged and unworthy and undeserving, you'll probably be able to see a lot more progress and not have such heavy negative feelings when you switch to having a framework that focuses on setting yourself up to be accountable and not shameful. And accountability is so great because it's what's focusing on behavior change and not tearing you down as a person. So, what's more present in your life right now? Shame or accountability? A couple years ago, I had made this Instagram post that explained that I always struggle when it comes to me reaching the halfway mark and reaching my own goals. And at the time, I was currently in school. I was at the halfway point of my semester, and I was also trying this new workout program, and I was about halfway through that as well. So I make the post about it, just saying that I was essentially proud of myself for recognizing that I was at my struggle point where I'm at the halfway mark and it's just difficult for me. But I was self-aware and I was going to push through. And yeah, I was just posting that for maybe relatability, and I was a little bit proud of myself. Well, my coach at the time in college, I had a study coach actually. She saw the post, and under the post, she wrote, "What's happening in your brain around the progress that leads to slacking off?" You know, it's funny, I had to laugh at myself when I saw her comment, because here I was almost like patting myself on the back for being self-aware, but she actually ended up inspiring me to go get my journal and process through what was actually my thought process, what was going on in my mind when it came to my making progress journey. And I don't know or don't remember what I wrote in the journal at the time, but even now reflecting on that, I know at least a few different things had to be going on. One, I had some unchecked expectations. I had to have thought that the process was going to look different or be different than what it was, or maybe just it could have even been as simple as I thought it wasn't going to take as much time as it was going to take. And that's not just relating to my goal for the semester of having a non-stressful, consistent study plan for the semester, and not even just limited to the workout plan that I was doing, but just with anything. Since that was a habit for me of struggling at halfway points, I must have had a pattern of having some unchecked expectations of thinking the journey was really going to look different than what it was. Because whenever I reached a halfway point, it was a mix of like being excited that I was there and reaching new grounds, because that was a goal in of itself, that I had been consistent and I had been seeing the benefits. I know with that workout program, I was noticing that I was feeling stronger than I felt before. I was feeling a little thinner than I was looking before. So it was a mix of like being proud of myself, but also probably a mix of some disappointment, because I had to have subconsciously been thinking that it was supposed to be different. Maybe I expected progress, but maybe I thought I would be a little bit more further along than what I actually was. And because I had those unchecked expectations, that's part of the reason why I was tempted to want to slack off and wanting to quit. Number two, there had to be some uncertainty there. Now, this one is completely normal. Whenever you try anything new, it's normal to have doubts and not know if it's going to work out for you. And it's interesting because the coach I was working with, she had the evidence that her method would work for me. It had worked for plenty of other students, possibly 100 other students. And the people that really applied her techniques, it really did work for. So the evidence was there, but there was still a level of uncertainty and a level of doubt. And that's not where the issue is, I think that's, again, normal. What I think became the issue was that I was letting the doubt outweigh the trust that I'm going to see this process through and it's going to work out for me. So when you cling to doubt, you're going to start delaying, and then, you're not going to reach the goals, and then you become discouraged and distracted. I can go on with the D words right now, but because I was clinging to the doubt and the uncertainty, I wasn't being able to show up fully and present and give this a fair enough shot. I was letting fear hold me back there, and therefore feeding the doubt instead of giving myself evidence that this could work by being consistent with it. So at that halfway mark, it seems like it was just a habit where I'm like, you know what? It didn't look like how I thought it was going to look. So that's reason for me to have doubt. And instead of me continuing it through and just readjusting my expectations and having the belief that things will work out when I do the work necessary to get to where I'm going to get, I fed into the uncertainty and doubt, which didn't allow me to show up fully and presently the way that I needed to. The third thing that I think might have been going on was that there was just some insecurities. I mean, whenever you try something new, sometimes it's exciting and exhilarating and just, refreshing. And other times you just feel so exposed and so vulnerable. It's uncomfy. But what I learned from this was that I had to start viewing my insecurities, especially when it came to change, as me coming to a crossroads. So when I come to that point where I feel insecure, and am I going to go back where I was, where it's comfortable, where it's safe, where I'm familiar? Am I going to go this way where it's going to probably challenge me and I don't know what's there, but there's possibly some growth and opportunity there? Or am I going to stay where I am and just kind of be in limbo there of places to go? What is it going to be? And just kind of trying to make myself aware of what I'm doing when I reach a point of insecurity has really helped me try to be more conscious about making an intentional decision. And I also just want to say that sometimes it's easy to say, oh, the right answer is to always choose to go forward and explore that insecurity and stuff. And maybe, but it may not also always be the right answer. For instance, let me give an example. If you are a smoker and you recently quit smoking, you may be presented with opportunities or situations that are going to put you in a vulnerable, tempting situation. It may not be wise for you to test that vulnerability and that temptation yet if you're not prepared for it, if it hasn't been long enough, if you are not secure enough to go forward in that and explore that. It may be the wise thing to do to go back to your safe space, wherever it's not tempting, and just spend a little bit more time there until you've built the muscle, built the strength to go out and be in those situations. So it's not always just a black and white answer of, yes, always test the boundaries. You should maybe explore the insecurity within yourself, but maybe not physically put yourself in the tempting or vulnerable position at all times. So that's why it really is a case-by-case situation. And when it came to me feeling insecure about the halfway point in the semester or halfway point in my workout journey, those would have been really good examples for me to maybe explore what was going on mentally with my insecurities. What I'm getting at here is that being self-aware is not the end of the road for the work. That is not where the work stops. And I get why it can feel like that's, a big deal, because it is. Becoming self-aware can take a lot of work, and that is a milestone. And I found that sometimes milestones can kind of become roadblocks when we sit at that milestone and celebrate it too much, when we are just a little overexcited to the point where we're distracted from the goal, from the vision. Yes, I was proud of myself for recognizing I had made it past the halfway point of having a really consistent study plan that was working. Studying didn't seem as stressful or as hard anymore. I was seeing it reflected my grades. I was noticing the differences in my body with strength and just looking a little toned. I was excited about that. And I celebrated that because I, had reached new milestones. I hadn't been to that point before. And that was something exciting and to celebrate and to acknowledge. However, that wasn't the end goal. My goal was not to reach the halfway point. My goal was to reach the end of the semester having been consistent. My goal was to do a 6-week workout plan, not a 3-week one. So while I was better than what I was at week 0 or at the beginning of the semester, the work wasn't done, and being self-aware is not all the work that needed to be done. And this is not to say that you always have to be full throttle, intense all the time on every journey that you're going on so you always reach the goal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that sometimes when we reach milestones and celebrate them, it can be tempting to slack off because, again, we've made progress we haven't made before. But when you let yourself off the hook too much, and you begin to slack off, I find that when you do that, you stop doing the things necessary to get to the end goal. Right? It's easy to celebrate and say, oh my goodness, what I was doing was working. That's amazing. But if I celebrate too long and think that I've got it and because studying doesn't feel as hard anymore, I don't need to do whatever. If I stay in that and get distracted and feel like it's not this thing I need to really be focused on, I may not do the same things that I was doing before because it doesn't feel like I need to. Therefore, I'm not going to reach the end goal, which was to be consistent the whole semester. So don't allow the wins, the milestones along the way, distract you from the vision, the big goal, the big picture. Another lesson in this for me was learning that any kind of change, good or bad, can cause you to indulge in some self-sabotaging activities. Basically, I was going through good change. I had learned new techniques that didn't stress me out when it came to studying. Again, I was getting stronger, all that. And that was good, but that was also a change. So it was interesting to see how I personally reacted to change. And that may be something that you need to do as well. If you are constantly having to restart the same goals and it's like, well, yeah, I did make progress before, but you don't really remember what came up that distracted you. It wasn't this big thing. It might be that you don't have a good response to change, even when it's good change. That was like mind-blowing to me that I was having a negative response to positive change just because it was new. The other thing I find is that it's easy to justify relapses because we maybe made more progress than we did the last time we tried. And while relapse in any goal or journey and path that you take is completely normal and expected, learning to be better at celebrating your wins without being distracted of the end goal can save you so much frustration. And your process is your process, and it takes you how long it takes, and you're not going to always get it right the first time, the second time, the third time. That's not what I'm saying either. However, what I'm trying to call out here is that sometimes we drag that process out when we don't hold ourselves accountable. And that's just real. And I'm calling myself out on that too. Sometimes I just don't hold myself accountable. So I end up trying to reach the same goal over and over and over again. And it's taking years for me to get there when it didn't necessarily have to. But I was doing things that contributed to me choosing that path. And the thing that I have learned that has helped me get better at not quitting prematurely or having so many relapses along my journey is to practice reflection, self-reflection, do the work to become self-aware. And then when you've done that work, remember that that's a great milestone and you should celebrate that and you should acknowledge that. But don't stop there because that wasn't the goal, to just become self-aware. And if you are self-aware like I had to start exercising some self-discipline, but I was only able to do the self-discipline part. I was only able to do that by challenging my thought process, calling out my excuses, and remembering my vision. And I was able to do that through setting up accountability for myself. So I challenge you to evaluate what your patterns are when it comes to your health and wellness goals. Do you also seem to struggle when you enter new territory, good or bad? Challenge that, explore that, ask yourself, what's going on in my mind around that causes me to want to stop? And sometimes it's not always the technique that you do. You might have the answer sheet right there. I had the formula for a good study plan, but I was still having to restart and try again until I got it right. And the plan didn't change. What changed was I had to shift my perspective and check my mindset. I saw that I had so many unchecked expectations and there was a lot of insecurities there. Once I worked through those, I was able to exercise some reflection and self-discipline and commit to the plan and keep myself accountable. But it really wasn't until I challenged what was going on up here, up in the mind. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I actually came up with this topic for this week because I was recently having some of these same struggles come up again, not with halfway marks unintentionally, but there was just some uncertainties and comparison going on my end when it came to this podcast. But last week, I just came across a couple videos and had a couple conversations that really encouraged me to not give up prematurely, to not quit. And I almost got ready to change my goal, change the course, change whatever about this podcast because I was like, this just isn't working. I don't know I had some unchecked expectations as far as like how I'd be doing by now. And I was just like, I don't know if this is worth it. But when I reflected and saw what was going on, I was able to kind of snap out of it. Y'all, I started this podcast back in October 2022. It is March 2023. That's about 5 months. So one of my goals for the show was to show up consistently for 1 year. It has been 5 months. It's almost, we're halfway to April. So I'm almost at the halfway mark. I still struggle with halfway point subconsciously, but because I've done that work of catching that before, I became self-aware of it and I self-reflected now. I'm able to catch myself and say, hey, what's going on? So I can check those insecurities. I can check those expectations and I can check my doubt sooner than later and snap out of that and decide to keep going. So instead of, cueing the dramatics and totally throwing my hands up and wanting to quit, I recognize a pattern and I'm dealing with it and I'm still showing up. One of the videos that I watched last week kind of touched on quitting and showing up for yourself. And I really loved how the video explained it. Basically, what she said in the video was that sometimes we're too focused on the end results and not the things you need to do to get to the end. Isn't that good? Sometimes we're too focused on the end results and not the things that we need to do to get to those results. That hit home for me. I'm not even gonna lie, because I was like, oh, I was ready, so focused on, I guess, milestones that I would have hit by now and what I want the goal to be, but that was taking my eye off of what I needed to do to reach those milestones. And it's not happening the way that I thought I would be, but that's okay. You adjust, you keep going. And I can at least give it a full year shot, So right now, it's my job to keep up with doing the things that are going to help me be consistent at the end of the year. I'm going to keep researching. I'm going to keep being creative. I'm going to keep editing and I'm going to keep posting and really master that process, get really good at that, just like how I did with the study plan, where the study plan started to feel easy. So this is hopefully going to start feeling easy. And before I know it, a year is going to pass. And the other thing that the video put out that I thought was really, really helpful was that when you focus on the things that you need to do to get to the goal, a lot of times you'll reach that goal naturally. I'm not saying that applies to every single goal that there is, but a lot of these more like things like with this show or even with weight loss or weight gain or other common health goals, gaining new friends, meeting new people, investing in your career. If you focus on the things that you need to do to get to those goals, it will be a natural result of those actions. So if you don't remember anything else from this episode, remember this. Remember the vision and focus on the process. Remember the vision and focus on the process. So when you do reach milestones along the way, you start becoming self-aware. Celebrate it. When the study plan gets easier to you, celebrate it, acknowledge it. When you start looking a little bit more toned and your waist is looking a little bit smaller, or you're gaining weight because you've been wanting to, celebrate it. Do that. Yes. But also keep your eye on the vision, but not so much that you forget the things that you need to do to get there. It's a balancing act. So I hope this was helpful. Share this episode with a friend. It might really help someone. Videos that I saw really encouraged and inspired me. It was by Courtney L. Sanders. She's a life and business coach. I'll link it below in the show notes. But it really helped me. So I just had to share my take on it and how it's helped me. And it might help a friend for you. So definitely share this episode with a friend. If you haven't left me a review yet, you can do that over on the Apple Podcast if you're an Apple user. But if you're not, you can at least rate it. That's available on Spotify, or just go like the YouTube video as well. All feedback, any form of it, I will take. So if you haven't done that, please be sure to go ahead and do that for me this week. It just helps me really know what's working, what's resonating with people, so I can continue to provide good content for you guys. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next episode. Bye.